Welcome back to the deep dive. Last time, we really went deep into Laozi's idea of selflessness, didn't we? That whole paradox of putting yourself last to, well, come out ahead.
Yeah, it was a fascinating exploration of a really counterintuitive principle,
Yeah,
but essential.
totally. And today, Laozi takes us, I think, somewhere equally profound, but maybe more tangible, more visible in the everyday world.
Right. He shifts from that abstract idea of selflessness to arguably one of the most beautiful and, universal metaphors in all of
He
philosophy.
points us towards water.
Exactly. Water. Simple, everyday water.
Think about it for a second. I mean, what if the best way to be, a better person or a really effective leader or just more balanced, more harmonious,
Yeah.
what if it wasn't about being like a rock? Solid, strong, immovable.
Right. What if that whole idea of strength as rigidity is, well, maybe not the whole picture,
Yeah. What if the real wisdom, the ultimate path, is actually about learning to be like water, flexible, yielding, persistent?
but incredibly powerful in its own way?
Precisely. So our mission for this deep dive then is to really unpack that, to explore the timeless wisdom of water, using it as a guide for, well, living virtuously, living effectively.
And we'll look at the ancient text, of course, but also find some pretty surprising modern echoes of this idea.
Okay, let's dive in. Let's explore these hidden currents. Where do we start? With the source text, right?
Yeah. Always best to start there. This is from the Tao Te Ching, Laozi's core work. We're using the DC Lao translation here.
Okay. And it seems so simple when you first hear it, but let's let it sink in. I'll read it through deliberately. Laozi says, "The highest good is like water. Water is good at benefiting the myriad creatures while not contending with them. It takes up the place that all men dislike, and so is near to the way. In a dwelling, what is good is the spot. In the mind, what is good is profundity. In giving, what is good is benevolence. In speaking, what is good is trustworthiness. In government, what is good is order. In handling affairs, what is good is competence. In action, what is good is timeliness. It is because it does not contend that it is without fault."
Just hearing it read like that, it really lands, doesn't it? That opening line sets everything up.
The highest good is like water. It's such a bold claim, right?
Yeah.
It immediately asks you to rethink what good even means.
Absolutely. And Laozi doesn't waste time explaining why. He jumps right into its core virtues, that first one. Water is good at benefiting the myriad creatures while not contending with them.
Benefiting without contending. Okay, let's unpack that. What does that look like?
Well, think about water's basic function. It sustains life, all life. Plants, animals, us. It flows into every crack, every field, nourishes everything it touches.
Silently, too. It doesn't announce its arrival or demand payment.
Exactly. It gives unconditionally. A river doesn't check your credentials before letting you drink, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't seek applause or recognition for making the crops grow. It just is, and in being, it gives.
Which is so different from, well, often how we operate. We tend to compete, to strive, to want credit for our contributions.
We do. We often see life as a zero-sum game, or we focus on asserting our dominance, our place. Water shows a different way. It serves universally without struggle, without fighting for its place.
It flows around obstacles instead of trying to smash through them.
Precisely. That non-contention isn't weakness. It's a form of immense, quiet power. It's universal service without the friction of conflict. A really powerful model.
Okay, that makes sense. And it connects directly to the next point, doesn't it? It takes up the place that all men dislike,
Yeah.
seeking the lowest ground.
Yes. This is the humility aspect, and it's just as countercultural, maybe even more so.
Because we're always told to aim high, climb the ladder, reach the summit.
Right. Ambition is usually defined as striving upwards, seeking prominence, recognition, the high places. Water does the opposite. It naturally flows
The
downwards.
valleys, the depressions, the overlooked spots.
Exactly. The places we often see as undesirable or insignificant. But think about it. Where does water gather its greatest power?
In the lowest places. Lakes, oceans.
Precisely. All rivers flow eventually to the sea, the lowest point, and there they become vast, mighty. Water's preference for the low ground isn't a failing. It's the source of its pervasiveness and its receptive strength.
So humility isn't about being weak or unimportant. It's about being grounded, receptive, able to gather energy.
That's a great way to put it. By being unassuming, by willingly occupying the low places, water becomes able to fill everything, to be everywhere, to gather potential. It finds its strength not in elevation, but in depth and acceptance. It shapes the world from the bottom up, you might say.
Wow. Okay. So these two qualities, benefiting without contending and dwelling in low places, these make water special. They make it, as Laozi says, near to the way. near the Tao.
Exactly. And this is where we bridge from the observable qualities of water to the deeper metaphysics of Taoism.
Right. The Tao, it's often translated as the way, but it's much more than just a path, isn't it?
Oh, much more. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy describes it brilliantly. It's not just a way to walk, but more like the underlying structure of causal possibility, which entangles all things.
Whoa. Okay. Structure of causal possibility.
Yeah, think of it like the fundamental operating system of the universe, the inherent pattern or process by which things naturally unfold and connect. It's the cosmic flow, the ultimate reality behind everything.
So when Laozi says water is near the Tao,
He's saying water is perhaps the best physical example we have of something acting in perfect harmony with that underlying structure. It embodies what Taoism calls normative naturalism.
normative naturalism. Okay, break that down.
It's the idea that our ethics, our way of living well, shouldn't come from some abstract, imposed set of rules, but should actually be a continuation of the natural guidance we see in the world around us, in other things.
So look to nature for clues on how to live.
Essentially, yes.
Mhm.
And water is the prime exhibit. It follows the Tao perfectly, effortlessly. Why? Because of its inherent nature.
His inherent nature.
Right. Let's bring in two key Taoist ideas here. Ilin and Day. Think of Ilm, that's L-I, as water's internal programming, its intrinsic pattern, its natural way of being. It's why it flows down, why it's fluid, why it seeks the lowest point.
So its fundamental properties, it's physics almost.
Kind of, yeah. Its inherent operating principles. And Day,
Yeah.
DE, is the virtuous power or the adaptive effectiveness that emerges from that account. It's water's ability to nourish, to cleanse, to wear away rock, to be incredibly adaptable.
Okay, so Ellen is the how it works, and Day is the what it achieves because of how it works.
Nicely put. Water doesn't try to be beneficial. Day, it just is beneficial because its nature aligns perfectly with the Tao. It doesn't need to consult a moral compass. Its very being is its compass.
That makes the connection feel much more organic. It's not just a symbol, it lives the principle.
Exactly. And that Sanford source makes another great point. Large animals create paths to water. And water itself creates Taoist paths, which humans and fish, bears, etc. may follow.
So water literally creates pathways.
Right.
It carves canyons, guides animals. It acts as a natural form of guidance, a real-world Tao.
It actively demonstrates the way. It doesn't just reflect it, it shapes the world according to it.
Okay, that's powerful.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a nuance earlier. Wang Bi, the commentator,
Yeah.
he said water is near the Tao, but not the Tao itself.
Right. That's a crucial distinction. Wang Bi pointed out that, look, water is amazing. It's the best metaphor we have, but it's still a thing. It's tangible. We can see it, measure it, understand its properties. The Tao itself, the ultimate reality, is beyond all things. It's formless, nameless, ungraspable. It's the nothingness from which everything arises.
So water is like the clearest window we have onto the Tao, but the Tao itself is beyond the window.
Perfect analogy. Water is the best guide, the most perfect physical manifestation of Taoist principles we can perceive. But the ultimate reality transcends even this perfect example. It hints at something deeper, something that can't be fully captured even by water.
It keeps the mystery alive, doesn't it? Even with such a perfect metaphor.
It does. Water gets us incredibly close, but the ultimate source remains ultimate.
All right, this gives us a really rich picture of why water is so central here. But Laozi, practical as ever, doesn't just leave us there, right? He breaks it down.
He does. He gives us those 7 goods or 7 virtues. It's like saying, okay, you see how amazing water is. Here's how you can be like that in different areas of your life.
A practical roadmap for living like water. I love it. Let's unpack these 7. Where does he start?
He starts with dwelling. Humility. Just like water seeks the lowest place, finds its equilibrium there.
We should find strength in unassuming places, in being grounded, not always reaching for the top spot.
Exactly. It's about cultivating contentment where you are, avoiding that constant, anxious striving for status or recognition that causes so much stress. Finding peace in simply being rather than obsessing over where you think you should be.
Like water settling peacefully in a hollow.
Precisely. It finds its purpose there. For us, it's about embracing humility not as a weakness, but as a source of stability and receptivity. Find your power in being grounded, like a deep valley gathers the rain.
Okay, dwelling with humility. What's next?
Mind, profundity. He wants our minds to be like a deep, still pool of water.
Calm, clear,
Mhm.
able to reflect reality without distortion.
Exactly. Contrast that with a shallow, muddy puddle, easily stirred up, reflecting nothing clearly. Profundity here means inner calm, depth of thought, serenity, a mind that isn't constantly agitated by external noise or internal drama.
Which allows for real insight, real wisdom to emerge.
Right. When the surface is calm, you can see the bottom. When the mind is still, you can perceive truth more clearly, untainted by your own turmoil or biases.
So cultivate inner stillness to gain clarity, like letting sediment settle in water.
Perfect. Become a deep well of insight, not just reacting to surface ripples.
Makes sense. Number 3.
Giving benevolence. This goes back to that first point about benefiting all things. Water gives itself freely, unconditionally.
It nourishes everything without asking for anything back.
Right. So for us, this translates to a boundless kindness, a generosity that flows outwards naturally, supporting and nurturing others without needing credit, advantage, or even a thank you.
It's not transactional giving, it's just flow.
Exactly. It's the natural day, the virtuous power, emerging from a state of being aligned, like water flowing downhill. Pure, pervasive generosity. Practice a kindness that sustains others, like a river quenching thirst.
Beautiful. Okay, what's the 4th good?
Speaking of trustworthiness, water is reliable, it acts according to its nature, it's consistent, we trust it to be water.
So our words should be like that. Honest, dependable, matching our actions.
Precisely. It's about integrity in speech. Building harmony and trust because people know your word is good, like a clear, steady stream always flowing true.
As opposed to words that shift and change, undermining trust.
Right. If your communication is erratic or deceptive, trust evaporates. Be true to your word. Let your speech be as reliable as a spring.
Okay. Trustworthiness in speaking. Number 5.
Government. Order. This one's interesting. Think about how water always finds its own level. It creates balance, equilibrium.
It smooths things out, creates a level playing field almost naturally.
Exactly. So in leadership or managing any kind of system, even just governing yourself, the idea is to foster fairness, harmony, balance, create conditions where things can find their natural order.
Instead of imposing rigid artificial rules from the top down.
Right. A water-like leader facilitates, guides, allows the natural Tao of the system and its parts to emerge. They don't micromanage through force. They create an environment where balance happens organically.
Like letting water settle in a container until it's perfectly level.
Exactly. Foster natural balance and fairness, allowing order to emerge, not forcing it.
Okay, 2 more. Number 6.
Handling affairs. Competence. This is about water's amazing adaptability and effectiveness.
How it's soft enough to take the shape of any cup.
Yet strong enough, persistent enough to wear away solid rock over time.
Ah, right. That contrast.
It's the ultimate example of being flexible and effective. It yields when faced with a direct obstacle flowing around it. But it also possesses this incredible, persistent power to overcome huge challenges through steady, gentle action.
So for us, it means being adaptable, flexible, but also capable. Knowing when to yield and when to persevere.
Precisely. It's about smart efficacy, not brute force.
Yeah.
Find the path of least resistance, be adaptable, but stay persistent in your ultimate aim. Like water carving a canyon, it yields moment to moment, but achieves monumental results over time.
True strength is adaptability plus persistence. And the last one.
Action. Timeliness. Water inherently knows when to act and how.
What do you mean?
Well, it knows when to be still, like a calm lake. When to flow strongly like a river, when to evaporate and rise, when to freeze and be solid. It moves in perfect rhythm with the seasons, with conditions.
Oh, okay. It responds appropriately to the situation, to the time.
Exactly. So for human action, this is the wisdom of knowing the right moment. When to push forward, when to pause, when to retreat, when to wait. Not acting too soon, not acting too late.
Moving in harmony with the natural unfolding of events.
Yes, it's about aligning your actions with the flow of circumstances, like a surfer catching a wave at the perfect moment. This isn't about just being fast, it's about being attuned, acting with wisdom, knowing when to flow, when to be still, when to adapt.
Wow, those 7 virtues. They cover so much of life, don't they? Dwelling, mind, giving, speaking, governing, handling things, acting. It's a complete picture.
It really is a comprehensive guide to living in alignment with the Tao, using water as the model.
But Laozi ends with that incredibly powerful line. It is because it does not contend that it is without fault. What's the ultimate message there? Is non-contention the secret ingredient that makes all the other virtues work?
That's exactly it. That final line is the linchpin. It's the master key that unlocks the effectiveness of all the other 7 goods.
Also,
Think about it. Why can someone embodying these water-like virtues achieve so much good seemingly without struggle? Because they are not contending. By choosing not to compete, not to fight, not to push against, their actions become purified.
purified, meaning
Freed from the ego's constant interference, freed from the need for status, the craving for recognition, the urge to be right, the desire to dominate or control. When you act without contending, your motivations shift.
from self-interest to something else.
To genuine benevolence, perhaps. To acting with timeliness because you're attuned to the situation, not just your own agenda. To competence that flows with challenges instead of battling them head on.
And this freedom from ego, from contention, is what prevents future problems, makes one without fault.
Precisely. Actions driven by ego and contention inevitably create friction, resentment, opposition. They sow the seeds of future conflict. But actions performed from a place of non-contention. They flow smoothly. They don't generate resistance. You achieve things without making enemies. You act without leaving a trail of negative consequences.
So, without fault doesn't mean you never make a mistake, but that your way of acting doesn't create new problems or harbor ill will.
Exactly. It's about the quality of the action and its repercussions. It's deeply connected to that core Taoist idea of wu wei.
Right, wu wei, effortless action.
Or, more accurately, action that aligns so perfectly with the natural flow, with the Tao, that it feels effortless and achieves optimal results without force. It's not about passivity or doing nothing.
It's about intelligent, harmonious action, like pushing a boat with the current, not against it.
Perfect. You contend against the river, you struggle, expend energy, make little progress. You flow with it, using its power. That's wu wei. That's acting without contention. That's how you remain without fault, by moving in harmony with the way, just like water.
That connects everything beautifully. It's a powerful way to think about effectiveness. And it's amazing how this ancient wisdom, this way of water, isn't just some abstract idea stuck in the past.
Not at all. Its principles echo through history and pop up in some really interesting modern contexts.
Yeah, let's look at some of those. Where do we see this water-like approach playing out? You mentioned Lincoln earlier.
Yes, Abraham Lincoln, particularly his approach after the American Civil War. Think about the situation. The nation was utterly fractured. Bitterness was rampant. The easy, maybe even popular path for the victorious Union would have been severe punishment for the South.
Retribution, make them pay, contend with the defeated enemy.
Right. But Lincoln, embodying that water-like humility and non-contention, chose a different path. His famous call for malice toward none with charity for all, that wasn't weakness. It was profound strength.
Seeking the lowest ground of healing and unity, even when it was politically difficult.
Exactly. He chose not to crush them further, but to bind up the nation's wounds. By refusing to contend in that moment of victory, by choosing reconciliation, he laid the groundwork, however painful and imperfect the process was, for the nation to eventually heal. A punitive approach would have just bred more resentment, more conflict down the line.
So his non-contention was actually incredibly strategic, incredibly competent, and timely.
Absolutely. It allowed the possibility of reunification, the Tao of unity, to emerge from the devastation. A prime example of water-like leadership on a massive scale.
That's fascinating. And you also mentioned Aikido. How does that fit?
Aikido, the Japanese martial art, is almost a physical meditation on the principles of water. It's quite striking.
How so? It's a martial art. Isn't there inherent conflict?
Well, yes, it addresses conflict, but not by meeting force directly with force. That's the key difference. If someone attacks you with force, a push, a strike, the Aikido practitioner doesn't block rigidly or push back harder.
Yield, like water.
Exactly. They blend with the attacker's energy. They move with the force, absorb it, redirect it. They use the opponent's own momentum to unbalance them or guide them safely past, neutralizing the attack without direct confrontation.
Like water flowing around a rock.
Precisely. It's embodying adaptability, competence, knowing when and how to yield, timeliness, and ultimately resolving conflict without contending head-on. The goal isn't to injure, but to neutralize the aggression, to restore balance.
Making the attack harmless by flowing with it. That's incredible.
It's wu wei in physical form, effortless effectiveness through non-contention.
And these aren't isolated examples, are they? This kind of thinking, this leaning towards natural flow and non-striving, seems to surface in other philosophical areas too.
It does. You see echoes of it in the evolution of Zen Buddhism, for instance.
Yeah.
Sources mention how Zen thought moved towards a more natural and comfortable life philosophy.
Moving away from rigid rules or extreme effort towards something more fluid.
Yes, a kind of inherent harmony, an emphasis on direct experience and aligning with the way things are rather than constantly struggling against them. There's a clear resonance with the Taoist appreciation for naturalness and effortless action, exemplified by water.
So this wisdom of aligning with the flow, of finding strength and yielding, it seems to be a recurring insight across different traditions.
It certainly seems that way. Whether it's Lincoln navigating a national crisis, an Aikido master neutralizing an attack, or Zen seeking natural harmony, the underlying principle, the effectiveness and peace found in non-contention and adaptability, the way of water keeps reappearing. It speaks to a fundamental truth about how to navigate reality effectively.
This has been so illuminating, really understanding water not just as a metaphor, but as a practical guide. And that brings us to the practice. We always like to offer something concrete for you, the listener, to try out.
Yes, something to move this from intellectual understanding to lived experience, even in a small way.
So how can we practice being like water this week?
It's a very simple, very low-stakes experiment in non-contention. The practice is this. Sometime this week, find one small disagreement or a minor point of choice where your instinct might be to resist, to argue your point, or to push for your own way.
Okay, like what? What kind of situation?
Oh, truly minor stuff. What movie to watch, what to order for takeout, a slight difference of opinion on a non-critical topic with a friend or partner, maybe even just which way to walk somewhere. Anything where there's a small divergence of preference or opinion, but the stakes are really low.
Got it. So find one of those moments.
And instead of digging in your heels, consciously choose to yield. Be like water. Try saying something simple and genuine like, okay, let's try it your way, or, I'm open to that, or sure, let's go with your idea this time.
Yield. Let go of the need to win that tiny point.
Exactly. Treat it purely as an experiment. You're not necessarily agreeing forever. You're just choosing non-contention in that specific moment.
And then what? Observe.
Yes. Observe two things. First, notice what happens to the interaction itself. Does the potential friction just dissolve? Does the mood lighten? Does it make the other person feel heard?
Okay.
And second, more importantly, observe your own inner state. How does it actually feel to yield, to let go of that little bit of resistance? Do you feel less tense? Maybe a sense of ease or even relief? Does it free up mental energy?
So it's about noticing the external effect and the internal feeling of non-contention?
Precisely. This small act can be surprisingly revealing about how much energy we often spend on minor conflicts and what it feels like to simply flow. It might just open up a little space, a little peace in your day-to-day interactions.
That sounds like a really accessible and potentially powerful practice. A small taste of the way of water.
That's the idea.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. The wisdom of water. It feels both ancient and incredibly relevant, and that final line really sums it up, doesn't it?
It
is because it does not contend that it is without fault.
That's the core message.
So, just to recap for everyone listening, we've seen how true strength can be found in humility, like water seeking the low ground. True effectiveness comes from adaptability, that yielding yet persistent competence. And real peace, that state of being without fault, emerges from the quiet, powerful art of non-contention.
Beautifully summarized.
So as you go about your week, keep an eye out for water. Notice how it moves, how it nourishes, how effortlessly it seems to achieve its purpose, shaping the world around it without apparent struggle. There's so much to learn just by observing.
And maybe one final thought to leave you with, something to chew on.
Please.
We talked about how water creates Taos, how natural paths emerge and guide life. If that's true, what unrecognized Taos, what natural emergent pathways or patterns might already be present in your own life? Things you're following, perhaps unconsciously.
Like currents we're already caught in.
Maybe. Or inclinations, talents, circumstances that are naturally guiding you in a certain direction. And the question then becomes, what might happen if you consciously chose to lean into that natural flow more often? If you trusted those underlying currents a bit more, instead of always trying to force your own path or rigidly control every outcome?
What if we stopped fighting our own currents?
Exactly. Could that lead to a profoundly different, more effortless, maybe even more effective and fulfilling way of living? Just something to consider.
That's a fantastic question to end on. Thank you so much for guiding us through this.
My pleasure. It's always fascinating to explore Laozi's wisdom.
And thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll continue exploring these currents in your own life.